welcome, Vivek. It's so great to speak with you.
Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you.
Thank you for doing this. Hopefully this is going to be some fun. You have been a longtime client of BlueStar Key Solutions, which, I'm Chief Product Officer of BlueStar. And I really wanted to interview you because I find you are very different from the usual law firm that we deal with. When I went to your site, the first thing it says lawyers for innovators. So you have a law firm. You're the founder of Jayaram Law in Miami Beach. Is that right?
Yes, I live in Miami Beach. I founded the firm when I was in Chicago, and we are pretty much between Chicago, New York, and Miami.
Oh, nice. And so you specialize in like IP, trademark. Is that right?
Yeah. So like me personally, I've spent most of my career as an IP lawyer, both on the deal side and then also doing litigation. But then our firm, like sort of broadly, is sort of, I guess now is like sort of full service. So we've got a team of like maybe about 35 or so people. And the way we really think about it is like we can take any business, we tend to focus on like the creative businesses and brands and things like that, but we can take any business really from like a seed to sale. So we can like, help form the company, we can help raise the money, we can help onboard the employees, we can help protect the IP, we can manage your big disputes and kind of help you with the operational stuff. And then, as you grow and scale and years down the road, we've got like an M&A team, which can help you sort of sell your company if that's what you're interested in doing. So we've kind of not everybody here is sort of an IP and corporate lawyer like I am, but I would say virtually or nearly all the clients that we work with care about their intellectual property a lot and sort of treat it as like a major asset of theirs.
It's a really interesting approach. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen that before. I guess it's because, if you're starting with a seed, you may be starting when they have no money to like grow to when they, when they have something. So that's really interesting. So what attracted you to kind of that approach?
Okay, so like I have like probably not an unusual path because I feel like lawyers kind of come from every sort of corner of the world and background and everything.
Right.
But in many ways, some of your listeners may find it as a little bit of an unusual path. So I was, I went to University of Wisconsin as an undergrad, and I really didn't know what I wanted to study. Or what I was going to do after I graduated. But I've always been really into like arts and culture. So I like always loved music. I've played music my whole life. I love movies. I love contemporary art. And I have for about as long as I can remember. And I used to love to read books, write. And so reading and writing were like two things I love doing. I love reading all different kinds of books, but I also loved writing music and just writing in general. And so I became like an English major. And when I got to be a junior, at Wisconsin, I remember going to the career office because I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do next? And I was an English and journalism major, and I, also took a lot of like political science and history and things like that. So I was really thinking about being a journalist.
Okay.
I was writing for the Badger Herald, which was like the University of Wisconsin newspaper.
Oh, cool.
It was cool. I got to interview Donna Shalala when she was our chancellor back then, and she's gone on to do a whole bunch of things. She, since then, but I remember them sort of plopping down on the desk. This is still, I wouldn't say pre-internet. We definitely had the internet my junior year of college, 1998. But, these kinds of things weren't really digitized yet. And there was like a book that had like career opportunities for journalists. And I remember her talking to me and she goes, well, so if you want to write for like the New York Times or something like that one day, you might have to start in like Topeka, Kansas, and then like move to like a more middle market, kind of place and blah, 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 blah. And, the starting salary is like, whatever it was right back in the late 90s. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm like on loans. I like, I didn't, grow up with like gobs and gobs of money where I could just do whatever I wanted with my life. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be a tough one. Right. And so then this counselor who, I candidly don't remember her name. She said to me, what courses did you really like? And my instinct, there were these two classes that I really liked. And she said, huh, that's interesting. I said, why? And I remember the two professors. One was Professor Mayer, and one was Professor Fowler. And she said, that's very interesting because those are the only two classes you've taken that were taught by law school professors.
Really?
And I said, oh, interesting. I said, yeah, you know what? I did like the method of their teaching. I thought it was like pretty like substantive. There was like, and the professor kept us pretty engaged. And so that was the first time I ever thought about law school. And honestly, I didn't have to do much more because I was lost enough where I just didn't know what I wanted to do. That when she said, okay, law school, I said, this sounds great. And she goes, yeah, she goes, you love to read and write, right? I'm like, yeah, that's what I love to do the most. And she goes, we do a lot of that in law school. I said, great. And so that was basically the reason for going to law school. And so I got to Cardozo, which was in New York City. I knew I wanted to live in New York, and so I moved out to
You're
New
at
York.
Columbia? Okay.
Yeah. And there I thought to myself early on, I was like, okay, I just love creative people, so like maybe I'll be an entertainment lawyer. Like I thought that sounded kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
And then my first summer, I was lucky enough to get an internship at Sony Music in Manhattan, and it was, and here's the thing about it. It was great in that I ended up meeting somebody who was a mentor of mine for many years, and who kind of reconnected with after many years. He's actually down here in Miami now, and we become friends again. But I really didn't love the work, to be totally honest with you. I was like, and of course I was an intern, so I wasn't really getting, like the most exciting work or anything. But long and short of it, Sarah, I went back to my second year of law school, being just as confused as I was when I joined. And I just dove into a whole bunch of research with a professor that I really enjoyed working with. Her name is Marcy Hamilton, who does a lot of work on clergy abuse cases, on child abuse cases. And she has also come full circle with me because most recently we handled a pro bono case just over the last couple of years where we sued Ron DeSantis in the state of Florida over their 6-week abortion ban.
Oh, yeah.
We lost the case, and now the Florida Supreme Court has said that it has upheld that law, which I disagree with. But but anyway, so bottom line is I didn't know, and I'm kind of going through. And at the end of law school, I'm just like, I had a job lined up at sort of a firm or whatever, but I knew I wanted to do a clerkship for a judge. And to be honest, Sarah, it's probably more of the same. I love to read and write. I loved law school. I thought it was very engaging and interesting, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I knew that a federal clerkship would be a really interesting opportunity, like the opportunity to be able to write, opinions for on real cases. I thought would be really cool. And so I applied in New York, I applied in Chicago, I applied in Los Angeles, and this professor that I was, working with, I told you, Marcy Hamilton, she said to me, hey, you should apply to Burt Jordan. He's a really, really impressive federal judge down in Miami. And I said to myself, I hadn't considered Miami. I didn't know anybody in Miami. I don't even think I had been to Miami at that point in my life. And, I'm a pretty like adventurous person, and I'm like, I'm always interested in a new opportunity. And so I said, sure, I'll go interview with him. And long and short of it, I got an offer. I moved down, and
so that's why you're in Miami.
That's why I'm in Miami. So I started the clerkship. And about halfway through the clerkship, I met my now wife, who's I shouldn't call her really an immigrant because that's not really completely accurate. She's like a double exile, right? So her family first had to flee Spain when Franco was in power to go to Cuba, and so they were, they pretty much grew up in Cuba and Havana, and then the night that Castro took over, that night they had to flee.
Oh, wow.
The father fled to Miami and then ultimately back to Spain. Mom went to Spain. So my wife was born in Spain, and then they immigrated to Miami in the 80s. So I met her about 6 months through my clerkship. We fell in love very quickly, and I ended up then calling my firm in New York, who was actually at a big Miami office, and so that's how I ended up at Greenberg Traurig in Miami, and I started there, and I was doing like commercial litigation, but I kept kind of coming back to IP because that was something that was really the legal skill that was needed most sort of in the creative industries. And so whether it was music or Hollywood films or conceptual and contemporary art and fashion, like all these areas that I just sort of enjoyed in my sort of personal life, were things that I saw sort of embodied in IP law. So that's kind of when I got interested in IP. And then, it wasn't until several years later that I started this firm.
It's a really cool story. And when I think about it, or when I'm listening to the story, it makes me think of things and people that I've spoken to in my life that, this is why I'm here today, the path not taken or the path taken.
Yeah.
And it could be just a conversation or an encounter. And it just ends up that, hey, I'm in Miami and I founded a law firm and there we go. It's just a really cool thing. I wanted to kind of bring back to your kind of mission statement, which is to enable original ideas. TM.
Yeah.
That's great. So I'm thinking about startups and people that have these artists and, they're called starving artists for a reason, right? They're just getting started. And at what point can they really get access to services like this? I mean, I think you do a lot of pro bono work with artists, and how do you select those artists? And
Yeah. So I'll kind of tell you how this whole thing started, and then I'll talk about a little bit about how I view or how we sort of work with artists.
Okay.
So after several years working sort of in big law, I really enjoyed people I worked with and things like that, and I got to work on some very big kind of matters, but I really felt like my creative side was not being satisfied, and so I wanted to leave. Didn't really love the culture of big law back then. I don't think it's really changed all that much, but I kind of decided I wanted to go out and do this on my own, and I was in Miami, and I literally came home from work one day, and I said to my wife, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just and she's like, well, you love practicing law. So maybe if you figured out a way to practice it on your own terms, you would enjoy it more, right?
Yeah.
So literally that first conversation was sort of the impetus for Jayaram Law. And so we were in Miami, and I said to her, all right, I want to start my own thing. And she said, well, two things before you start your own thing. I said, what? She goes, one, I'm not moving anywhere with you until we get married. I said, great. And she said, two, I wanted to move back to New York and kind of start there. And she said, we should really move back to Chicago because that's where you grew up, and your parents are there, and if we have kids, we'll have family around.
Yeah,
so in 2009, we left Miami Beach on a January morning in an old Volvo. I think it was about 80 degrees. By the time we got to Nashville, it was about 10 degrees. And she goes, we're going another 6 hours. I said, yeah. And we got up Chicago. It was negative 15 degrees. It was us two and our golden retriever on a January morning. And that really started at the very beginning of Jayaram Law, and the 5 years that we spent, sort of in Chicago, as I was sort of building it in those early days. And I only had one real vision, Sarah, in the beginning, which was I wanted to work with the most creative people on the planet. That was it. And it wasn't just as clients, it was also I wanted to hire and work with internally. I want to build a team of really creative people, because I really strongly believed that lawyers are extraordinarily creative people, but I believe it's the industry that forces lawyers to kind of conceal that. Everybody has to dress the same way, everybody has to talk the same way, and it was mind-boggling. It was really shocking to me, because I'm like, wow, you have all these really, really smart, interesting people in this place, but you've kind of trained the adventure and the spirit sort of out of them, and that never made sense to me, because now we talk so much about authenticity, which is obviously very important, but even back then I feel like I was feeling that I can't be myself, in this
100%. 100%.
And I'm like,
Totally
that's
agree.
not the life I want, and so I just want to be myself, whether I got, blue hair or wearing a hoodie or whatever it is, that's just who I am, and so that was kind of the impetus. I just want to work with great people. And so it really started, with a focus on fashion, on contemporary art, and on technology, for no other reason than those were the industries my friends were working in, and I knew that they hire me, And of course, I was interested in these areas too. So in the early days, go back and answer your question. Yes, there are starving artists, and yes, we do a lot of pro bono work around helping artists. But I actually think there are, that artists should make a lot of money. I think artists have opportunities now to have super sustainable careers. So a lot of the top tier artists we work with, frankly, make more than CEOs and fund managers that we also work with. That said,
100%.
Right, but the market and the world doesn't necessarily value art the same way that they may value other things. And so I think your question is a really good one. And I think that it's really important, because if you think about time and history, right? Like periods of time, whether it's like the Renaissance time or like the Impressionist era, or like medieval times, or like the 1920s or the 1960s, right? What are the things that we most identify with those time periods?
It's music, it's art, it's
art.
Dance,
it's all art. Yeah.
Fashion, it's all those things.
Yeah, and it's all IP. So in my view, I really think at the end of the day, and I say this to my clients all the time, at the end of the day, your company, your thing, your blah, 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 it's just IP. Like that's the only real thing that's valuable, right? Because like if anybody can go to Italy and find the really good fabric and the really good people to sort of make the polo or the really beautiful loafers or whatever it is, right? But when you have that logo on it, whatever it is, if it's the LV monogram, if it's the Ralph Lauren horse, right? Those are the things that are attributing such extraordinary value to these products. And so I think, IP, both from a commercial standpoint, a historical standpoint, a cultural standpoint, like really is impactful. And that to me is one really interesting thing about working in these spaces.
Yeah, from a societal standpoint, art is incredibly, as you mentioned, important, and it is, being seen as less and less important. There's less investment in it from an educational standpoint. So like changing the mindset, I think, is a really, really important thing. I mean, as a parent, as a person, just as a person, what do you do in your free time, or even when it's not, you're listening to music while you're working, you're, even like what's on your walls, like the art, it just does something for you that, reading a document cannot. One of the things I was wondering about, and you mentioned like the cool people you work with, like your firm has grown significantly over the past few years. Am I correct in saying that? Okay.
Correct.
So how do you, if a young lawyer is watching this and thinking, man, Vivek's really super cool, I wonder how I could get into a firm like that. What do you look for in your kind of prospective team members?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. In that regard, we probably are quite different, I think, from a lot of places. I mean, I'm going to say this, and like, I don't know, maybe people on my team might be like, really? But I'm about 20 years of practice, like in a few months, it'll be 20 years, 15 years in a few months of having the firm. I've never asked a candidate for a transcript and look at their grades. So I've never once. It hasn't even happened once. So we don't look at that. Obviously I'm looking at what their work experience has been. We don't typically take people right out of law school. So it's usually 2 years of experience at least. I mean, if you look up and down our roster, most people have even more experience than that. I really look for people who, who are passionate about something, and it could be anything. We've got the head of our trademark team is just a complete soccer fanatic. I have another lawyer on our team who's just so into fashion and Latin music and reggaeton, like just super, super, super into it, right? Other people are super into like nonprofit work, and other people who are really into cooking, right? Or whatever it is. I think those kinds of things interest me, because I think in order to be a sort of emotionally intelligent and evolved kind of professional, where you're giving really, really critical advice to people who are going through, whether it's that's my dog. 1 second.
So
right.
You were.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
So go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to finish, but I was going to say, like, I found that like the people with these kinds of interests are ones that tend to like fit into our culture. I mean, we are probably more sort of like very, very serious about culture. I mean, I think that, so you ask about like, how do you get a job? It's really about being obviously it's table stakes to be a very good lawyer. Like you've got to be able to do the work.
Mhm.
But I think we really look for people who are kind, who
Yeah.
are able to think a little entrepreneurially. I mean, you know, a little bit out of the box,
Mhm.
and who have sort of these passions and interests that are outside the law, because I feel like that's really what gives you like the breadth and scope of like a life experience that can help you kind of navigate your way through a scaling company.
100%. All those different experiences, you know, they really lend to any discipline that you're in. You know, I find, you know, I'm a product manager. I'm a product person, so I do a lot of. I have a computer science degree. I only got that because I was like you, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do. And I was actually I was taking a degree in international development, and then I went over to Indonesia and I did some development work over there. And I was like, I know nothing, you know, like I'm completely useless. I need a skill. Like I can teach English. What, you know? So I said, okay, well, it was the 90s. I'll go into computer science. That'll be something I'll do. But it was not something that, you know, was natural to me. And I find it's really cool. Like at BlueStar too, you know, this is a group of extremely passionate people where we're not, what I love is that we're not constrained by, you know, thinking inside the box or doing things the way that, you know, everybody else does it. So it really gives us a lot of freedom to kind of experiment, to learn, to do really cool, creative things. And that's where I think that's the seed of innovation is really passion.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it. I agree.
I have to say that one of your cases inspired me in one of my projects. You don't even know this, so this is a new thing. You were doing a pro bono project, and it was about a up and coming young artist and his jacket. And
yeah,
and I was yeah. Sorry, what was his name?
James Kincannon is his name.
Exactly, James Kincannon. So then this was a really interesting case, and I know that one of the challenges was that, you know, you were trying to find everywhere that, you know, James's jacket appeared and Instagram and things like that. And I thought that was a kind of an interesting challenge. And so we're doing a lot of AI innovation, and I developed a tool that enabled you to kind of find any object anywhere on the internet and to list all the different places that it occurred. And we're calling this like object identification, but this is like, I think that one of the weird things working in litigation technology and support is we never ask, what is the matter about? Like, what are you trying to find? And so we really changed our culture now, where that's the first thing that we ask, okay, what are you trying to find? Because I think that as our community of litigation tech and support, we could support you so much better if we just help you find what you're looking for. I mean, instead of wasting all that time. So we've been doing that, and it's been really super fun because we found this, like you talk about labels and things like that. We found we were looking for something in an exploded warehouse, and it was like this device, and I said, what does it look like? And they gave me this picture of it, and it was a really nice picture. It looked like from the website. And I was like, what does it look like now? Oh, we don't know. I'm like, okay, where was it? I'm not sure. Is it even there? Maybe. Okay. So I'm like, how am I supposed to find something that's been in an explosion? And when I looked at the evidence, it was literally a garbage dump. It was just like,
oh my gosh.
And so, we found that piece of evidence within 48 hours and using AI. Yeah. It blew my mind, so yeah, I think that's it's kind of totally what you're talking about. You work with creative people, you think in a way. I mean, let's think how humans think instead of thinking how, attorneys are supposed to think or computer scientists are supposed to think and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's interesting. So you're talking about, I want to talk for a minute about sneakers. What is I've seen you on panels on LinkedIn about sneakers. What's the deal? These are your designers, I'm sure. Are these some of your clients or sneaker people?
I mean, honestly, like I've been in sneakers my whole life. I mean, I got a pair of Air Jordan 1s when I was probably 7 years old, in Chicago, and I got Scottie Pippens, I got Magic Johnsons after
Yeah.
that, and so like I've definitely, been in it, and I think in like high school with like skate culture and everything, which I was kind of
Yeah.
into a little bit, like I got into Vans and all that kind of thing. And I think, at the firm, I mean, obviously, like working so much in the creative spaces and really wanting everyone to just be themselves. I mean, we've never had like a dress code or anything like that. I mean, if you're going to court, wear a suit because that's just
Sure.
what you do. But like
Yeah.
outside of that, like everyone's just encouraged to just be themselves, dress how they want. And so like I've unlike a lot of lawyers and other corporate people probably, like I've just been able to kind of like carry my love for sneakers into my like career and adult life too, I guess. And about 5 years ago, I was really lucky because I was able to reconnect with a friend of mine, Kenneth Anand, who now has been on our team for a number of years. And he actually was the head of legal for Yeezy for really the
Oh,
years
okay.
where they were experiencing a lot of growth. And he wrote a book early in the pandemic called Sneaker Law, which is really cool. And it's really all about IP and corporate law as it relates to the sort of fashion and footwear business. And it's really great. So, I mean, we've really brought sneakers. Sneakers are certainly a topic of discussion and a character of the firm, I guess you could say. And every year, for many years now, I mean, I think probably 6 years or so, we make custom sneakers for our employees.
What?
And
What?
yeah.
Really? Like, do you like based on their personality or what?
No, so we
How do
pick
you-
a different sort of base sneaker every year. So like the first year we used Air Jordan 1s, I think, because that was like
Okay.
near and dear to our hearts. I think the second year was like an Air Jordan low, Air Jordan 1 low. We've used Adidas, we've used New Balance 990s. This last year, what we just did a couple months ago, we used Mischief Super Normals, and then we take the sneakers, and then we hire work commission an artist that that's in our community,
Okay.
to customize them. And the first year or two, it was just something we did internally, and I probably threw it up on LinkedIn or Instagram or something, and like whatever. But now what's kind of crazy is like it definitely has grown into like a little bit of a thing. Like I think we get a lot of sneaker designers reaching out, being like, "Can we do your holiday sneakers this year?" And then we'll get and then the probably the thing that irritates for the spouses of employees that are listening, or boyfriends, girlfriends, others, whatever. My wife is on me all the time. She's like, "I can't believe I don't get a pair." And for us, it's really, really special, and it is a real sort of showing of gratitude for us to our team. And it really is a representation of everything we're all about. I love doing it. So sneakers, sneakers. I love sneakers. Who doesn't love sneakers? So
not for sale. No, you can't get a pair. Not even for the significant others. I gotcha. All right. So that was my next question. Anyway,
listen, the reason I actually, my wife's name is Carolina. The reason I literally don't give a pair to Carolina is because that's the only like little leverage I have for when the clients ask, and when like other people ask. I'm like, listen, my wife doesn't even get it.
No, that's valid.
No, to be honest with you though, Sarah, when really impressive lawyers DM me around the holidays after I do the post and everything, and they're like, "How do I get one of those?" I'm like, "Come work here." And that has, believe it or not, has recruited one, maybe two people.
Really?
Yeah.
And so everybody, they're in Chicago or Miami, or where's everybody located?
So the majority of our people are in New York.
They're in New York. Okay.
In New York, but we've got a big 6,000 square foot space there where we've got probably about 15 to 20 people, I would say. And we also are, as a sort of a co-tenant, we have one of our clients, Snarkitecture, which is like a really cool design firm, and they have spent the last year and a half building out the space with us, for us. And we're having like a big opening party on May 2nd. It's going to be pretty fun.
Cool. That's
awesome.
It's
really turned the space into a very like immersive, kind of interesting, just a really interesting experience, I guess.
Well, that's awesome. We've taken a lot of your time, but I did want to ask you one final question before you go. And I was wondering if you had any advice, for up and coming attorneys. What would that be?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I tell law students. I've been teaching at the University of Miami now for almost 10 years.
Okay.
This is what I tell young lawyers. This is what I even get calls from like more experienced lawyers, right? And not necessarily winning every big case before the U.S. Supreme Court. We're not making more money than every lawyer on the planet, right, or anything like that. But I think we're a pretty engaged and happy bunch of people.
Right.
And I think the reason for that is the culture that we've built. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason that the advice that I would have for really anybody is, the law is a pretty extraordinary and can be like a pretty magical place to work in, because the law, unlike most or virtually every other industry, the law literally touches every corner of modern life, right?
No, and really, so,
yeah. Right. And so if you love cars, right, you can work in the auto industry. If you love toys, like our CEO, Noah, you could start a toy company or go be a GC for Mattel or something, or go work in-house for Mattel. If you love sports, there's plenty of jobs for you. If you love books, if you love music, if you love fashion, if you love art, right? If you like if you like the public markets, right? Whatever it is that you are passionate about, there is a legal job for you. And I think that the vast majority of us forget about that, or just don't bother to sort of investigate that. And I truly do think that the reason we've been able to build such a special culture here is because everybody is able to be their authentic and true self. Truly, I mean, it may sound cliche, it may sound like every self-help book that's out right now, but it's just the truth. Because when you are asked to dress a certain way, talk a certain way, do this, don't do that, blah, 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 it sucks the life out of you. And I'm here to tell you that because I was in a job like that, right? And so were many other people who work with us, right? And so what we've been able to do is just create a place where there's just so much deep admiration and respect for the work that everybody does, for the experience that everybody brings to the table, for the differences that we all bring to the table, our differences of opinions, our differences in background, right? And I think for lawyers especially, right, and I think this might even, probably seeps a little bit into the finance world as well, I think it really operates from a fear perspective, right? Better bill your hours or else, right? Yeah. Better close the deal or else. Better win the case or else, right? For me, that just doesn't jive with my life view or worldview in any way, right? I actually think that you should if you're fortunate enough to be somebody who gets to have an education and fortunate enough to somebody who's able to get yourself to an advanced degree, like a law degree, right? You should have no problem, or not, I shouldn't say no problem, but there are ways for you to find something that you're passionate about. And this is an industry where you're going to be spending so much time, right? And I have seen dozens and dozens and hundreds of lawyers spend that time, decade after decade after decade, doing things that they are not passionate about and they don't care about, right? And I really think if you're really passionate about something and you find a way to make that your professional life, you're going to make a good living at it. You're going to, because you're going to work hard at it. You're going to stay focused and engaged, right? And I've just seen it happen, right? And I mean, I've seen it happen time and time again. And I think really that would be the advice that I have, which is there's way more than the one path that's offered in law school. And, I think for whatever reason, the legal industry just has not moved with sort of the industry of business, so to speak, or the commercial world generally, right? You look at how tech companies or any retail company, consumer company, there's just been an evolution in the way that we think about work and things like impact and purpose and things like that, which frankly are just not really, we've got a lot of work to do in law, right? We're not really focused on wellness. We're not really focused on evolution and creating good humans, not just tenacious lawyers, right? And so I think I think that is in large part because people are kind of focused on maybe the wrong things, right? And so I really think it's important for a young lawyer to do a little bit of like, introspection and what moves you, what gets you out of bed in the morning, what gets you excited. Find something in that space, because when you do that, you're going to be able to be yourself. You're going to, you're not going to. I mean, I tell people all the time, I haven't had a job in 15 years. I mean, I really just don't feel like I have. And, and I know I'm very fortunate and very grateful to be able to say that. But I think that there are many more people who could have that kind of experience. You just have to sort of think out of the box as it relates to the existing legal industry. But the opportunities are out there, and I'm always happy to talk to young people to give them my sort of 2 cents on it.
Oh, that's wonderful, Vic. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, BlueStar is such, we love working with you guys. And I will say, just as a little note, Donna came into one of your colleagues came into our office many, many years ago, and she dropped off a pamphlet. I was in a meeting in the conference room, and I just waved. I didn't know who she was. I just waved, and she dropped off the pamphlet, and she gave me a great big smile, and she just said, "Oh, hope you have a good day," right? And I remember my paralegal Julia was in our office at the time, and I'm like, that was so nice. I don't even know who that is, right? And literally, that is what kind of got us to like just pick up the phone and be like, "Oh, you know what? We do need some new discovery." And I will say, years later, working with you guys has been such a joy, and I feel like it's a good match with our culture. And I know that everybody on our team, loves working with you guys. And so anybody listening out there, if you need like really great ESI, but like also really good people, like you guys are the ones to talk to.
Well, thank you for the plug. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at your cases, what do you think is the coolest new legal tech innovation? Are you using anything different, or are you hoping to see something coming along the horizon?
Yeah, so we, I will say right now, I mean, listen, we are casually using a lot of the transcription services that are like around, like we are like Slack disciples to like all the plugins and stuff that are available for Slack. Like we do use some of that, but I will take this minute to say like we've actually are developing 2 of our own products that we're launching in a couple of months.
Are you going to be selling that? Is that going to be something you're going to be selling to other firms? Oh, wow.
Well, probably,
that's awesome.
Yeah, maybe to other, maybe to other firms. I mean, right now the big customers for those would be companies and creative agencies and things like that. People who are doing high volumes of trademark searching, and then on the Gen AI stuff, mainly large enterprise kind of companies.
Well, we need to find out more about that and get the word out to our clients as well, because I think that's really amazing. I have a lot of questions about that. Technical, probably too much. So maybe that'll be a different.
I'll connect you with Noah on our team. He can talk to you about those things.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Thanks,
Sarah.
Okay, bye. Enjoy your meeting. Thanks so much, Vic.
See you guys.
Bye.